Hi everyone, I just wanted to let you know about a project I've just started. Let me give the disclaimer up front. No one's sponsoring this video. No one's paying for anything. No one's given me any freebies. I just pulled a bunch of these Octavos here because what I'm doing is I am beginning to catalog the Octavos that we have here at home. I'm using the free version of a program called Airtable. The reason I'm using the free version is because at this point, the free version suits my needs. I'm doing this by myself, and the free version that they have is for one user. Of course, it is not as robust as the paid version, but isn't that the case with most software? So that is where we are with that. What I'm doing is I've started alphabetizing these Octavos, at least the ones I pulled off of the bookshelf, and I'm entering them into Airtable. The information that I'm entering, let's see. Let me start from the top. Of course, the title, who wrote the words, the music, if there's an arranger, who was the arranger, who's the publisher, what are the voice types, if there's optional instrumentation such as optional flute obbligato, optional voices such as optional solo, optional children's choir. Those I put in the table. Actually, let me just take a moment and I will show you the table so that you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, here we are. So the first column in my table has the title, who wrote the words, who wrote the music, and if there's an arranger, who was the arranger. You can't see all of it. I've got my columns kind of mushed up so that I can at least see part of each column on these pages. The next column is for parts, at least with the Octavos I pulled all of them from the SATB section. So this first round of work that I'll be entering will all be SATB, but as you can see, some will have obbligato parts. So, flute obbligato, optional solo, optional children's choir, etc., etc. Then the next column is for cases where the writer or the arranger was inspired by a particular scripture verse. This could be useful for choirs, or rather choir directors who are doing their planning based on the liturgical year or sermon series or special services, things of that nature. The next column, instrumentation. As you can see, the few that I've begun entering were written for piano. And again, as was done with the parts column, the instrumentation column will also indicate anything optional or anything alternative. You'll see that second line says also available as. That's a particular octavo that's also available as consort. So if you happen to be at a church where you have a small orchestra, information like that is great to have, because then you know that if you have the necessary instruments, then you have an option, or a viable alternative to just playing on the piano, or if you're one of those musicians that regularly has to retranscribe your music to play on the organ, or whatever you might happen to have. That's good information to have. So that's why I included this column. Then I've got the theme or themes. So if you're having a particular service, or say for example it's getting near Advent and you just want to take a quick look at what you have available before you look to buy something else, it'd be good to have something like that in one place. And then my final column for the moment, I call it form. It's right there, form. And I put this column in because I don't want to call it a pet peeve, but I keep talking about it, so maybe it is. Most of my experience with octavos is that they do not indicate the ranges for each part. A few do, several don't, in my experience. So I already know that it's going to take me probably a long time to finish this table, and the reason is this column, because for each publisher that did not include this information, either on the front page of the octavo or the first page of the actual anthem, I will be going through the anthem to find what's the highest note and what's the lowest note for each part. I think that even though it's going to take a long time, once this is completed, it will make someone's life easier if I'm able to share this data in some way on a larger scale. And then that way I can spend the time now so that you or another choir director won't have to spend the time later. So pray for me. I really want to get this done and have it out there in a format that is helpful to choir directors. So this is what we are doing. We, the royal we. This is what I am doing. And I will try to update you periodically. I covet your prayers. I really want to bring this to some sort of completion, even if it's just the octavos that we have here in the apartment. There's probably 400 octavos here, give or take. But the good thing is, once this Airtable thing is completed, I will be able to tell you exactly how many octavos are here at the apartment. Not that you necessarily want to know, but factoids are fun for geeks like me. So maybe there's more folks like me out there that are curious and would like to know. So if you've stayed on this long, thank you for listening to the entire video. I hope this is helpful to you, since Airtable, or even if you just want to use something like Excel spreadsheet or anybody's spreadsheet, something that doesn't cost you anything but the time to enter the data, is probably a nice way to start. And we will see how this goes. So again, thank you so much. Blessings to you wherever you are, whatever part of the world, and see you on the next one.